You open your eyes. Same time every morning. The same alarm melody ringing in your ears. You get up, go to the bathroom, look in the mirror, and is the person you see in that mirror really you? Or is it a copy created by the system? You get ready, dive into traffic, arrive at the office. You turn on your computer. You check your emails. You attend meetings. You receive your salary. You go home. You sleep. And the next day, the same cycle starts again. And here's the most terrifying part. While doing all this, a voice passes through your mind saying, I am free. But are you really? Or are you the perfect slave living within the illusion of freedom? Henry Ford once said, the most dangerous slave in the world is the one who doesn't realize their own slavery. Because invisible chains are infinitely more powerful than visible ones. What a person doesn't see, they don't acknowledge exists. What they don't acknowledge, they don't fight against. What they don't fight against, they become enslaved to. And what they become enslaved to, they normalize, defend, and even love. This isn't just a quote. This is the summary of modern world's most ruthless reality. Slavery used to be simple. The chain was on your chest, heavy, cold, metal. The whip was on your back. The master was in front of you. No one could claim to be free. Slavery was open, and that's why rebellion against it was possible. But today? Today, slavery wears a suit. It enters your life with a signed contract. With retirement plans, health insurance, career path promises, it silently chains you. You have your office, your title, your business card, a digital record created for the system to recognize you. And all of these give you the illusion of freedom. And here's the most horrifying part. People enter this order voluntarily. They line up. They prepare CVs. They go to interviews. They compete to get hired. And when they get hired, they rejoice. No one forcibly takes you to work. But the system does something much cleverer. The system makes you choose by scaring you, by making you believe you have no alternatives. And you think this choice is free will. But is this really free will? Think, what did they tell you when you were young? Go to school, get good grades, get into university, find a good job, get a regular salary, get married, buy a house, buy a car, retire, and then live. Retire, and then live. So after spending the most energetic, creative, and powerful years of your life for a system, when your body is tired, your soul is worn out, your dreams are dead, start living. Does this make sense to you? Is this freedom? Napoleon Hill spent 35 years researching people's success and failure stories. He studied more than 500 millionaires, and he came to this conclusion. Most people live their lives according to others' expectations, and one day when they wake up, they can't even remember what their real desires were, because those desires have long been buried by the system, by society, by fear. When Hill met Andrew Carnegie, Carnegie told him, most people die poor while having the potential to be rich. Why? Because the pursuit of security has made them slaves. A regular salary causes people to avoid risk, and a person who doesn't take risks never achieves real wealth. Salary feels safe, doesn't it? That money dropping into your account on a certain day each month comforts you. You pay your bills. You clear your debts. You survive. But Henry Ford didn't see salary as freedom. He defined salary as an invisible chain, a gold-plated chain. Shiny, attractive, appealing, but still a chain. Because salary is the price of your time. And if you're selling your time, you're selling your life piece by piece. How many hours do you work in a day? 8 hours. 9 hours, 10 hours, some 12 hours. These hours are your life. These are hours that won't come back. What are you doing in those hours? You're realizing someone else's vision. You're building someone else's dream. You're growing someone else's account. And what do you get in return? A number dropping into your account at the end of the month. Is this number fair? No, never. John D. Rockefeller started working as an accounting assistant when he was 16 years old. He was earning $3.50 a week. But Rockefeller realized something very early. No matter how hard he worked, his boss was getting rich, not him. He was working 12 hours a day. He was tired. He was exhausted. But his boss's fortune was growing every day. That's when he decided. I will never sell another person's hours, he said. I will build my own system. And at 20 years old, he started his own business, a small trading company. Initially, his earnings were even less than a worker's salary. But there was one difference. Now he owned his own time. He experienced failures. He came to the brink of bankruptcy. But he didn't give up, because he was free. And by the time he turned 30, he had become America's richest person. Companies pay you far below the value you produce. If your monthly salary is 10,000 lira, you're producing at least 30,000, 40,000, 50,000 lira worth of value for that company. The difference goes into your boss's pocket, into the shareholders' pockets, into the system's pocket, hour by hour, day by day, year by year, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. You spend the most valuable years of your life in this cycle. And what do you get in the end? Retirement salary, an exhausted body, a worn-out soul, unrealized dreams, and a mind full of what-ifs. What if I had started that business? What if I had taken that risk? What if I had been braver? But it's too late now, because there's no energy, no time, no opportunity. Henry Ford had gone bankrupt twice by the time he turned 40. He had founded 2 separate companies, and both had failed. Investors didn't trust him. Some members of his family saw him as crazy. Give up this business, Henry, they said. Go get a proper job, get a regular salary, support your family. But Ford didn't give up, because he had seen a vision of an automobile accessible to everyone. And at 40 years old, at an age when most people give up, he founded Ford Motor Company. And he changed the world. But if he had chosen to work in a safe job, if he had fallen into the regular salary trap, the automobile industry might have been set back by decades. So why is this system so effective? Why are billions of people trapped in this cycle? Because the system doesn't hurt. It acclimates you slowly, quietly, without you noticing. It seems familiar. It seems safe. The human mind evolutionarily fears the unknown. This is our nature. Our ancestors didn't enter the unknown cave because there could be death there. They didn't eat the unknown fruit because it could be poisonous. And this instinct has remained with us, even thousands of years later. No matter how painful the familiar is, it's accepted as safe. No matter how liberating the new is, it's perceived as dangerous. Napoleon Hill called this defeat syndrome. Most people never tasted real failure in life because they never took real risks. They never left their safe zones. Hill used to say, failing is better than never trying, because failure teaches you something, but never trying turns you into a living dead. Hill's research showed that successful people had this in common. All of them had experienced at least once, most several times, major failures. But none of them had chosen to stay in a safe job. That's why you go to the same job every day. Every week you say, "Oh, if only Friday would come." Every month you say, "Oh, if only payday would come." Every year you say, "Oh, if only vacation time would come." And every year you postpone the same dreams. Next year, I'll start that business. Next year, I'll become free. But next year never comes. Because next year, you say the same thing. 10 years pass, and you're still in the same place, same job, same prison. And you call this life. You call this being realistic. You call this maturing. But Henry Ford called it something different. A numbed existence, a silent death, a breathing corpse, something that appears to be alive but is actually just surviving. Ford also added, people start dying the moment they stop thinking. Most people die at 25 but are buried at 65. Because after 25, they've stopped thinking, stopped questioning, stopped dreaming. The system has absorbed them. Now, I'm going to tell you one of history's darkest truths. One day, Henry Ford announced he would pay his factory workers $5 a day. For that era, this was an astronomical amount. Other factories were paying $1 or $2 a day. This was a revolution. Everyone was shocked. Newspapers put it on their front pages. People declared Ford a hero. What a generous man, they said. They erected statues of Ford. They sang songs about Ford. But the reality was much darker than this. Ford didn't want workers to become free. On the contrary, he wanted them to be kept under tighter control. Higher salary meant less objection, more dependency. Ford had calculated this very well. He thought like this: if I give my worker $1 a day, that worker can quit at any moment. They don't have much to lose. They can go to another factory. They can start their own business. They can become free. But if I give them $5 a day, then I've taken everything from them. Now they're dependent on that salary. With that salary, they rented a house, bought a car, got into debt, created a standard of living, and now they're afraid of losing that salary. Because they're afraid, they obey. Because they obey, they stay silent. Because they stay silent, they're under control. And Ford was proven right. Workers receiving $5 complained much less than workers receiving $1. They went on strike much less. They rebelled much less. Why? Because now they had much to lose. Ford explained this another way too. I pay my workers enough to buy the cars they produce. This way, they become both my customers and remain dependent on me. Once they buy a car, they need gas money, repair money, insurance money. And for that, they need me, my factory, my salary. After people received that money, they stopped questioning the system. Now, they had something to lose. Now taking risks was too expensive. Now freedom was too scary. Ford understood this very well. People defend their chains. If you offer them a new freedom, they refuse it in panic. Because the chain is familiar. The chain is safe. The chain is predictable. And most people choose familiar pain over freedom. They prefer known unhappiness to unknown happiness. They side with guaranteed slavery instead of uncertain freedom. Rockefeller had used the same principle too. When building Standard Oil, instead of buying out his most talented competitors, he offered them very well-paid jobs. Come work for me, he said. I'll give you a high salary. I'll give you security. I'll give you a retirement plan. And these entrepreneurs sold their own companies and started working for Rockefeller. Why? Because risk was scary. Running their own companies was uncertain. But Rockefeller's offer was guaranteed. And thus Rockefeller turned his potential competitors into his own employees. He bought their creativity, their visions, their courage, and they sold their freedom for a regular salary. Napoleon Hill described this situation like this: there are two types of people in the world. The first ones write their own destinies. The second ones play the script written by others. And unfortunately, the second group is much more crowded. Because writing your own script requires courage. It requires embracing uncertainty. It requires taking the risk of failure. But playing someone else's script is easy. You're told what to do. You're told when to come. You're told when to leave. You don't need to think. You just obey. Now ask yourself very honestly, if you're unhappy during the week and waiting for the weekend, is this a life? If on Monday morning when the alarm goes off you think, "Oh, not again," is this freedom? If you're sacrificing 25 days of the month for 5 days of comfort, does this make sense? If on your way to work you think, "I wish I were sick," is this a healthy situation? If when you come home in the evening you feel deadly tired, too exhausted to even enjoy your own life, is this living or just surviving? Henry Ford used to say, "Postponement is life's most silent suicide, because you're not dying. You're just not living. You're breathing, but you don't exist. You're moving, but you're not progressing. Time is passing, but you're not passing. And one day, you look in the mirror and ask, what did I do? What did I do with my life? Where were those dreams? Where was that excitement, that passion, that energy?" Napoleon Hill did research for 20 years before writing Think and Grow Rich. He met face-to-face with 500 successful people, and he asked them all the same question: "What's the secret of your success?" And he got almost the same answer from all of them. "I didn't choose the safe path. I took risks. I failed. I got up. I tried again. And never made working for someone else the center of my life." Hill discovered something else, too. Most successful people achieved their greatest successes after 40 years old. Why? Because until 40, they had worked in the system, learned the system, then left the system and built their own systems. Ford hated mediocrity, because mediocrity demands obedience. It teaches not to question. It normalizes accepting, submitting, integrating into the system. Mediocrity constantly whispers to you, "Be grateful. It could be worse. You're lucky. Don't take risks. You'll lose what you have. Everyone does this. You're not different. You're not special. Who do you think you are to leave the system?" But Ford had seen this. Belonging to the majority isn't security. It's the biggest prison. Because you get lost in the crowd. You lose your identity. You kill your potential. You surrender your soul. And in the end, you become a number, a statistic, a replaceable part. Ford used to say, "Society's majority is wrong. It has always been wrong. If the majority were right, the majority would be rich. But the majority is poor. The majority is unhappy. The majority has buried their dreams. So do the exact opposite of what the majority does, and you'll be successful." Rockefeller used to say something similar. Don't go the way the crowd is going, because that road is already crowded. There's no opportunity there, no originality there, no wealth there. Choose the road no one is taking. Choose the difficult one. Choose the risky one. And there, on that deserted road, you'll find fortune. Now I'm going to ask you a question, and the answer to this question will determine the direction of the rest of your life. Are you in this cycle? Do you wake up every morning and enter the same routine? Are you making the same complaints? Are you postponing the same dreams? And are you deceiving yourself by calling these normal life? If your answer is yes, know this: you are not free. You think you're free, but you're not. You're just a comfortable slave. Your chains are gold-plated. Your cell is spacious and bright. But you're still in a cell. One day, Napoleon Hill asked Andrew Carnegie, "Why can't most people become rich?" Carnegie gave this answer: "Because most people make a choice, freedom or security, and most choose security. The person who chooses security gives up freedom. The person who gives up freedom gives up wealth. The person who gives up wealth gives up the infinite possibilities life offers. And what remains in the end? A regular salary, a predictable life, and deep regret. So what now? Now you've seen the truth. You've noticed the crack in the matrix. What will you do now? Will you ignore it? Will you keep trying to sleep? Or will you wake up?" When Henry Ford was 60 years old, in an interview he said, "Do you know what I regret most in my life? Not starting earlier. I started at 40. I wish I had started at 20. I lost 20 years. 20 years I spent working for others, realizing others' dreams, enriching others. I can't get those 20 years back. But you can. Your 20 years are still ahead. The question is, will you use them or waste them?" In the next video, we'll discuss: why do people defend their own chains? Why do they attack with anger those who try to break their chains? Why does freedom seem more frightening than security to most people? And most importantly, how do you break free from these chains? How do you break the system? How do you take back control of your own life? How do you become a free person? You'll learn what Rockefeller, Ford, Carnegie, Napoleon Hill learned. You'll do what they did. You'll dare what they dared. Because they were once like you too. They were once in the system too. But one day, they woke up. One day, they said, "Enough." One day, they broke the chains. And they changed the world. If you saw a part of yourself in this video, if you felt a discomfort inside, if that small voice inside you is saying, "This isn't right, this shouldn't be like this," subscribe. Because this is the channel not for comfortable slaves, but for those who have decided to be free. This is the meeting point for those who refuse to be ordinary, who question the system, who chart their own path, who write their own rules. See you in the next video. And remember, if you can't see your chains, that doesn't mean they're not there. You're just so used to them that you don't feel them anymore. But this video made those chains visible again. What you do now is entirely up to you. Will you act like Ford? Will you think like Rockefeller? Will you dare like Napoleon Hill? Or will you continue to stay like the majority? The choice is yours.